Good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the June 26th meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. I am Joe Barnes, co-chair, along with our other co-chair, Laura Dorfman. Before we address our agenda tonight, let me confirm the presence of our committee members. Please respond in the affirmative if you are present or participating via our Zoom link. Maureen Callahan.
Present.
Reg Foster.
Here.
Jim Rosenbaum. Jim, I believe, is absent. Dave Hera.
Here.
Paul Dawson.
Here.
Keith LaFace.
Yeah.
Marshall Davis.
Here, unofficial.
Oh, you're very officially here.
here.
And our newest member also, Adam Block, replaces our outgoing planning board appointee, Gene McKnight.
Present.
Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much.
I also want to recognize our administrative coordinator, Lauren Spinney. Welcome, Lauren. Laura Dorfman and I would like to thank the committee for their commitment to the work we've done this year. Although we did not have a large number of initial applications and eventual projects, what we did address were initiatives that were very important to a wide number of Needham residents. Throughout the process, I think we were thoughtful and intent on doing the right thing for the citizens of Needham. I believe we made a difference. Now, we have three members who will be leaving the committee. Gene McKnight, as I mentioned, Adam Block will replace her and is present tonight. Laura Dorfman, who will be with us remotely, and Marshall Davis will replace her, an appointee from the Historical Commission. And I also will be leaving after tonight. As of now, the select board has not named a replacement for me. So our first order of business, we need to establish leadership for next year. This could be done in July. We have virtually all of the members of the upcoming committee in place. It may not make any sense to wait until July. So I would like to entertain nominations for both the chair and the vice chair of this committee for next year. Do I hear any nominations? I will then nominate Dave Hera as chair of next year's committee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Dave, would you accept? Sit down, Dave. You haven't been excused.
I'm just kidding.
Will you accept the nomination?
Yeah, I will. It's unbelievable, but I think I'll be the senior member other than Reg of this, group. And I know Reg is so busy that, well, it would be, too much
Okay.
for him to do that. Not that.
I am a little busy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah. I'm pretty busy.
But I'm happy to help out with this committee because I think this is one of the best committees in town, as I've mentioned individually to everybody, I think, around the table here. And we really have an incredibly important role to play. So
You
I
do.
think Dave would be a great chair myself.
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate it because I know you have a very busy other committee that you're still care of, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been slowing down lately. though.
Oh,
But I'm sure it
Don't,
it goes in
don't
cycles.
have faith, yes,
But we keep that moving along.
Are there any other nominations? Maybe I already asked this for chair. Okay, hearing none. Let me put it to a vote. A voice vote, please. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I just want to mention that not having been sworn in, neither Adam nor Marshall will be able to vote on anything.
I have been sworn.
He's been
You
sworn
have
in.
been?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wasn't aware of
Okay,
that.
no problem.
And you do need to, oh, no, you don't need to do a roll call vote because you don't have anybody there, so.
I thought
Laura
it
was
might
going
have
to
been
be.
Laura, but I tried to promote her as a panelist and it was declined. So I'm trying to add her to the Zoom.
Okay, so then roll call vote. I think,
Yeah.
Then,
All right, having completed our nomination for chair, please reply A or nay. Maureen,
A.
Reg,
aye.
Dave Hera,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Keith LaFace,
Aye.
Marshall Davis is not
I can't
official yet. Adam Block.
Aye.
Did I miss anybody? And the chair votes aye as well. Thank you. Thank you for stepping forward. I accept nominations also for vice chair. Anyone wishing to nominate vice chair for next year? I'm on the spot again. I would like to nominate Maureen Callahan as vice chair for next year's committee.
Second.
Discussion. Maureen, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mhm.
We'll put it to a vote again. And you can vote for yourself, as you know.
They did.
Maureen?
Oh, you can vote for yourself.
Oh, you sure can.
Okay.
You need three to go.
Aye.
Okay. Reg?
Aye.
Jim is not here. Dave Hera,
I'm,
Paul Dawson,
Aye.
Keith LaFace,
Aye.
Marshall Davis will be voting soon, not tonight, and Adam Block.
aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Thank you, Maureen. Congratulations. Thanks a lot. Okay, moving up on our agenda. CPC grant extensions. Lauren, do you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. So, or Reg can, so the Needham Housing Authority submitted requests to extend the grants. One was for the High Rock Property Conditions Survey that we funded, and the second was for the pre-development costs for Linden Chambers. I will say that with respect to Linden Chambers, I think essentially you're doing this at our request, right?
Yes,
We'd ask
absolutely.
that you expend all of the other pre-development funds available to you before the CPC grant. Cecilia has reviewed them. She's been working on the extensions with town council. And as long as all of you are comfortable with what was included in the packet and comfortable with the extensions, she will send them out tomorrow for signature.
And I could add a couple.
Please, Reg.
Things, because we have a lot of new members here that don't know how the process works, so. Our wonderful town administration headed up by Kate Fitzpatrick and Cecilia in this case. When we vote to approve a CPA grant, and ultimately it's approved by town meeting, which is the final decider. The town enters into a grant agreement, sort of administratively, with whoever is the recipient, in this case ourselves, but the church people, repair people, any of the community gardens people, it's everybody. And it's a very simple agreement. The town meeting vote is sort of evergreen, but the agreement sort of as an administrative management thing, a good government thing, has a 2-year time horizon that where the expectation is you either expended all the funds, and we're not expending it, of course, we expend it up front, or any recipient spends it up front, and then we submit invoices and we are reimbursed for those expenditures. So the town doesn't front the money, whoever is the grant recipient does. And then there is a sunset clause in it that says, in 2 years, if you haven't used up all the funds and you're still doing something worthy to be approved and reviewed and approved by this committee, of course, then you can send a letter in asking for a grant extension, which is the letters that you saw in the packet here. So this is sort of normal CPC procedure, CPA management procedure, and so forth and so on. And so the decision, on this committee's part, as the sort of ultimate arbiter of these sorts of things, is say, is it logical that the money hasn't been spent before now? Is there still worthy activities or outstanding things that need to be paid for, and so forth and so on? And then that's really what Joe is, and Lauren is sort of bringing us to the table.
Is it accurate, Reg, to say that there were 2 funding sources for the pre-development, the ARPA money, ARPA money, and the town's 1.3?
Yeah, so in fact, we got the town's 1.3 million first.
Mhm.
And then due to wonderful work by our representative Denise Gerlich, she got us an earmark for another 1.25 million, which does have a sunset of July, June 30th, 2025. We spend it or lose it, so forth. And so working collaboratively with the town and CPC and so forth, it made much more sense to draw down our initial pre-development expenses from that ARPA grant, because we want to like draw that down to zero. And since in essence, the town money is evergreen, if you ever heard that term, then we turn to the town money after that's all been expended. The whole project is $84 million, so I don't think there's going to be any doubt that we ultimately are going to need this money, and you'll see it when we get to the RFP or the update here, you'll see it cited in the RFP as part of the funding sources for the project. So that's the context, yeah.
Great, thank you.
And then the other one was the earlier grant.
Yeah.
And that one, we're still working on the High Rock Estates analysis and so forth. And we haven't gotten all the invoices in, so we asked for an extension for that.
That's in the amount of, I think, 81,000 plus,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay, questions, comments? Dave,
Do we need to vote on this or just?
Mhm.
I think we
Not-
do.
not a- we
Yeah,
do?
yeah.
And then Cecilia sounds like an extension agreement to send to us after this vote here.
Yeah.
So would you like a motion, Mr. Chair?
I would, Adam.
I'll take up, I move to grant a request for extension of 1.386 million grant to support redevelopment activity for the redevelopment of Linden and Chambers Streets.
Second.
Discussion?
Do they need to be voted on separately?
Well,
Or can we, Bash
The
them
motion
together.
is only for one of them.
okay,
Oh,
no, I just don't know
I-
in general, if you would make a motion to approve both of them at the same time, or do they need to be?
I
split
think
up?
it could come at both. You want to
Either
add
way-
that to?
Either way is fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
know.
I just at the planning board, we typically would do things individually, but I'm open. I can dance two ways.
And the reason for that is you might want to turn down the
One.
second one, and so that's why they have. that
Okay.
But the
procedure.
other thing, they're each individual separate transactions.
They are.
From different grant years, actually,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's why I initially intended to have two separate motions.
Good thinking. All right. Anyone else? Okay, let's put it to a vote. Dave?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Reg?
Aye.
And Joe Barnes, aye as well. Motion passed. Thank you, Adam.
Sure.
You're on a roll. Do you want to make a second motion?
The request to extend, to grant the extension of $81,970 for High Rock Estates property conditions report.
Second,
Discussion? Okay, putting it to a vote. Dave?
Aye.
Maureen?
aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
Reg?
Aye.
Joe? Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the status update on the Needham High School Tennis Court Project, which was submitted by Park and Rec. I think everyone at the table probably is familiar with this, but it wouldn't hurt to have anyone from the committee who was part of this to weigh in and provide a little bit of context for this if they wish. We know it was pulled. The tennis court project was pulled, I think, for a variety of reasons, but Adam, do you feel comfortable weighing in from planning board point of view, please?
Sure. So, I may be a momentarily, I'm still new to the CPC. I'm still learning the CPC's process, and forgive me and my naivete if I'm momentarily critical of a process and I don't know where it is, but it did come out during, so as I understand the chronology, the town, I think had made an application to this board for the funds. And then 6 months or later, subsequently made an application. To the planning board to support their special permit amendment. And that was a challenging process. It took longer than I think the town anticipated. And as far as the planning board was concerned, we weren't satisfied with the materials that were provided to us as we would be with any other applicant for a site plan review. And I think that may have influenced the Department of Parks and Rec or the Park and Rec Commission to withdraw the funding request from town meeting. And then once we resolved it, to proceed again with it. So the planning board has closed the hearing. I believe we have given recently direction to our town planner on the outline of our decision. I anticipate it'll be an affirmative decision. I can't speak for the board. We haven't voted yet, but I would anticipate that it'll be a favorable decision on all 8 courts. And that decision will probably be resolved either in, by the end of July, probably, not before.
Good. Mr. Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to point out that I think during the process, when this was before the CPC, several people asked whether or not abutters were consulted,
Yes, this specifically came
and
up.
the answer was no. And we went ahead and approved it anyway, and, I think in the future, we ought to consider, what other approvals and consultations are necessary for a project that may have some impact on the others.
I don't disagree with you, Dave. I think it's the courteous thing to do. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. Whether we are required handling a project application, that we have to assure that. And we asked that question, I think we all recall, more than once.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
When they sat here, have you talked to the abutter? Have you talked to the neighbors? No, we're about to. At one point, they said, we've got a meeting with the planning board coming up. Well, that was the 11th hour.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of felt, and in hindsight, maybe it was the wrong feeling that there were no issues, because like at the hearing, public hearing, there was no big negative things that were brought up, but in fact, there were, some issues that.
Maureen and I were the liaisons, and does everybody know what a liaison is? New members here know what a liaison is?
It's French
this-
for.
On this committee.
I love the
No,
accent.
don't do that.
Love the accent.
Don't do that to me. No, I'm just recognizing that we have 2 new members here,
Yeah.
so, I can.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so so when we get an application, one of the first things we do is, however many applications that we assign one of the committee members, or sometimes 2, depending on the project, to be the liaison between the committee and the applicant. And the idea is, we're not an advocate, it's definitely called a liaison for a person, a purpose here, but the point is to help that applicant put their best foot forward, and do everything that they need to do to get through the process. So Maureen and I were the liaisons for that particular project. And I think Maureen I have a comment, but I think you can confirm that the first thing we ever asked them when we were doing a site visit and looking things over is, by the way, how do the neighbors feel about this,
Yeah,
right?
because we walked the property with them, because they
Yeah.
were showing us where they were all gonna be laid
This is
out.
part of the
And
process.
it's close,
Our
it's close
process.
to the tree line that
Right.
Right.
separates that from backyards.
I attended 2, not formally on behalf of the planning board, but I have actually on a couple of occasions. Once with the town and a full crew of people from the town, and also with some neighbors too. And you could see the impact, and our biggest criticism was looking at the site plan that they had provided, which goes back to David, your comment about the unexpected criticism of the application. For us was that there was room to move some of the tennis courts over, like why would it be? Like if you have, even if you have another 6 inches, why wouldn't you just move those courts closer to the parking lot? and farther away from people's backyards. But, and that led to significant amount of consternation. There was discussion about perhaps reducing it from a number of 8 courts to 6 courts. But ultimately, the board, I mean, once the town kind of demonstrates to the planning board that there's a municipal need, and Park and Rec has its own need, or the high school has its own need, and the Park and Rec department has its own need, then it's not up to the planning board to.
Yeah.
If I may comment on that,
Yeah.
yeah,
You finish, Reg. Go
yeah,
ahead.
because, and I have 2 comments, if you can, since I've been around CPC for the longest here, is, one of the things that CPC has struggled with since I first ever joined it, which was like 2010 or 9 or something, is what is our role in terms of reviewing projects? We have members that are representatives of all the other committees, Parks and Rec and Planning Board and Conservation Commission, Housing Authority. Is our role to try to do the kind of review that those other committees do? And maybe substitute our judgment for those other committees? Or is our role to have a narrower review of the worthiness of the project balanced against, the 4 areas that we can fund and saying, what is worthy of getting the money if there are 2 projects competing for the same pot of funds? And it's pretty generally been on the latter side. So we do try to ask questions like, in this case, I don't think we clearly asked the question. And they did not volunteer the information that I recollect, so maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think they ever said, oh, and we need to go get a site plan review change. We're doing the original courts were under a variance, which is, if I got it right, it was
a special permit.
or a special permit. And we have to go get an amendment to the site plan. They did not disclose that in our application. And although we have recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, tightened up that due diligence thing, that monster thing that, what we had to do. I don't think we have a question on there saying, does this require a variance or a, site plan review? But we might want to consider adding that to next year's edition of the due diligence questionnaire. So that's one comment I would say. And then the second is that, having not, disclosed this to us, the other thing that I don't remember them disclosing, that I learned when I was listening, because I have to be sitting there on other business when I had to sit through this whole first hearing that you had, is I don't remember them ever saying, oh, and by the way, these courts have not been in use for like years,
Few
and
years. They did tell us that because they're.
I
they're
didn't
so
remember that, yeah.
Badly cracked
Right.
that it wasn't safe to use them, so.
So, but it had been, neighbors have obviously gotten used to not having the.
Yeah.
The inconvenience of the noise and the intrusion and so forth, so on. But be that as it may, I think, that, my feeling has always been that, we, when we get a Parks and Rec project, and they say, we really need to redo this, last year's example was, we need to do this fence. Our job is to kick the tires. Is this well thought through? Is it, has Parks and Rec said, this is our top priority for CPA funds versus other things that could be done? And is this going to be a benefit to the community? So we have all list of benefits to the community that says if it's just gonna benefit like a small population, that's one thing. But if it's broadly beneficial to the community and it isn't a result of the town, another one of our pet peeves lately has been the town has let infrastructure deteriorate and not been putting enough preventative maintenance into stuff. So we kind of look into, it's all documented in our new update to the plan. That's the criteria we plan. So we did kick the tires and they, and then we sort of expect the school department, in this case, in Parks and Rec, which was a joint applicant here, to know what they should be doing in terms of the right thing. And we just passed it, this project unanimously on the merits. I did, I thought this was a great project, but our job is not to move it 2 feet this way or rotate it this way or something like that.
Exactly.
Mr. Chair,
Dave, I'm sorry. Sure.
just to put on the record that Laura Dorfman has joined the meeting.
Hi, Laura.
Welcome,
Yes, sir.
Laura Dorfman.
She has her
Hi,
hand up.
guys. I'm sorry I'm late. We had to be on a call with our son in Israel at 6:45 unexpectedly, so everything's fine, but I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I do just kind of want to make a comment. I've been listening for a while. I just haven't been able to be promoted because of technical difficulties. Reg, I just think we need to be careful about talking about other departments and their responsibilities and you know, how that plays into our purview with, which is really just to approve the projects based on eligibility. I don't think we should be talking about, you know, lack of maintenance of infrastructure or lack of anything on the part of the school committee. That's just my 2 cents. I know this is my last meeting, but I just think we should be careful about that. Our job is to vet the projects and determine whether they're eligible for CPC funding. And I think that's really all we should be focusing on. I don't know if you agree, Joe?
I have nothing to add to that. We'll let your comments stand. Dave, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Reg, and I think that, we should, and I think you were suggesting this, to put a question on our standard list is, you know, have you talked to your butters and what other town permits will you need to get?
Yeah.
That's number one.
That
Number
would be
two,
easy, yeah, easy fix.
I see this on the Conservation Commission, and recently, you know, there's a couple of cases where this became an issue, is you hold a hearing, you notify people, and nobody shows up at the
Yes.
hearing,
Yeah,
right? So then, based on that, and this has happened here, you know, we had a hearing, we didn't get any negative impact, you know, so we voted affirmatively, then we started getting emails of people that, you know, were not, happy with the project, and then the thing kind of blew up a little bit, and so the question I would put forward is, what else can we do to make the hearing more noticeable, or, you know,
Well, I
to
think,
solicit input before the fact, before we vote? Because, I mean, I don't know if I 100% agree with Laura. I mean, I think that we should take the community's point of view before we vote on any project.
I think in
Lauren?
this instance.
I'm not suggesting that you don't take the community's point of view at all.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, Lawrence Finney?
I was gonna say, I think in this instance, part of what happened was our meeting happened before planning board. Our
Yes.
meeting, you know, we advertise it, we promote it, but planning board meetings get direct mailings to direct
About
butters.
For it to satisfy a statutory requirement.
Right, so I think the fact that your meeting happened, our meeting, it was all the proponents, people showed up because they promoted it to their advocates.
Right.
Once the direct butters had specific notification of planning board meeting, they showed up with their own set of concerns. And then we kind of had a different population of the two meetings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't, Mr. Chair.
Keith?
Yeah, does it make sense going into the future that, you know, we delay our vote until, you know, these prerequisite boards have have a chance to offer their feedback
I should sure.
when it comes to the.
I was just gonna say,
I would actually disagree with that. I think the CPC has its own purpose and its own criteria to evaluate projects. And I don't recall from my review that it includes satisfaction of the other, like, it's perfectly acceptable for the town or any municipality to come for funding as an application on a specific project and choose whether or not it can advance it and go to the planning board or go to the Conservation Commission if it needs to, or any other town department. And if it does, it's up for each of those departments to do its own job. And I think that, you know, it's true. I don't know what the statutory requirement is for a hearing for this board. I can speak to it from the planning board, but not for this board. And I think there's the only thing, to your earlier point of increasing the promotion or awareness of the hearing is through the town's own communications department. And have Amy make some kind of a blast and news you need, have it posted somewhere on the Needham website, that kind of a thing. And I think that, you know, that makes sense to do for these applications. But I also think it's really difficult to determine to base this committee's vote on both satisfaction by the other committees that may have a touch point that this commission may not be aware of yet. And secondarily, on like public opinion, because public opinion today varies tomorrow, and we saw that just by the sheer, advocates that came to support the funding application and the opponents. And some advocates that came to the planning board hearing for a different purpose. I think we have to judge it. I kind of like what Laura was saying before on very specific evaluation criteria. And I think in the questionnaire, which I haven't reviewed yet, and I'd be happy to, I think there are some other questions that can help inform the decision-making process for us. And we can ask questions of the other board, but I don't think we have to make it a condition of our vote.
Yeah, maybe it's just a bit of like an education as a relatively new CPC member, but it does seem caught before the horse a little bit if we were to approve. If we were to approve the funding for a project, and then it becomes a different project, right? So if it gets to the planning board and then it goes from 8 to 6. I'm not sure if that's the way it's supposed to work, but it does seem different.
Yeah.
We're
anticipated
judging it
that,
on
and
one thing.
I think we anticipated that, and I believe the article was drafted, generally. not
Is it up to
specific.
8?
Up
Yeah.
And we were careful not to say 8,
Right.
but up to
Yes.
8, so that there was room
Possibility.
if they
To
reduced
that
to 6,
process,
because
I
that was being requested by the neighbors and it was.
Yeah,
And
So
the
that's
board,
typically
Yeah.
the process, I guess.
but it's nice to know that
Comes to us clean. and
that was in
Yeah.
play.
goes through.
Yeah.
It could have been that we didn't know that was in play, but,
Mr.
we
Chair.
did find out.
So, to answer your question directly, we have a general public notice requirement, not I notify all the abutters type of provision. And we do all the things you said. We know it's in the news, you need them, it's posted. We do what we can to get the word out, and then nobody ever shows up.
yes.
And so, because you're not sending those notices to the immediate abutters, which is a statutory power that you have, but this committee does not have. And number two is, and I, I love Gene McKnight, but the planning board has a representative on this, committee. And it never came up. No, it was not disclosed by the applicant that maybe they didn't even know it at the time that they needed to get a variance adjustment or whatever. And there had to be a hearing, because I think that would have been a red flag for us. And I will give you an example, which Adam knows only too well. We're proceeding forward to try to get the funding for the Linden Street project from the state in November 1st. But if we don't have our site plan review done, they'll just turn us down like overnight, anybody who's giving out funding wants to make sure that all the ducks are lined up in advance of, actually granting that funding request. So I think the core thing that didn't go right here that can be fixed is when you see, this is like a 12-page detailed due diligence questionnaire that we came up with 2 or 3 years ago. And it's very detailed, but it does not have this question specifically for disclosure. And I think, if we're gonna kind of put our finger on where things kind of went wrong in this situation, it wasn't that,
I don't,
because remember, nobody knows that this ancient variance is there. We wouldn't know, only the applicant can really figure that out and, do
Reg, I
something
would
about it.
add to that, in this case, this past case, there weren't competing projects. But if there were competing projects, then I think
Right.
that this issue about, the viability of a project, vis-a-vis other, permits and whatever.
But my
would be
assumption
more
was,
important.
that they could build that by right.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive to these issues for obvious reasons over the last year. And I just sort of assumed, when the land was carved out for the school, they could just do whatever they want on there. And so it never occurred to me that they had to come to the planning board. And I don't think anybody knew that.
But even if, Mr. Chair,
Adam,
even if it did, I don't know that it would necessarily, if I was a planning board member, if it would adversely impact my vote at the time.
Correct.
I think that,
As a CPC member.
exactly, I don't think that anything went wrong by the CPC. I think it seemed to me like an application was made for funding in the ordinary course of this commission's work and business. and the commission reviewed it. And whether, in the absence of other competing applications or on the merit of itself, it was passed. As it, I think, ought to have been, because as just, not speaking for the planning board or this commission, but only for, as a town meeting member, I saw this as, yes, it specifically benefited the school, but it also benefited through Parks and Rec, the whole of the community.
It does.
And it's desperately needed.
Mm.
And on that basis alone, it seemed like an extraordinarily valid vote to take, regardless of what the planning board does. And particularly regardless of how an applicant presents its application, whether it's deficient or otherwise. So I don't see that the town as the applicant, I don't see that the CPC erred in any way.
Except, here's where I would-
Let's bring this discussion to a close here, okay?
May I make one
One-
more
one thing.
suggestion on this? Because I've learned an insanely amount of what you do for a site plan review, obviously, because that's coming up, And one of the things the planning board does is when it gets an application from an applicant, and you can correct me if I got anything wrong, they check with all the other boards and committees and say, do you have anything to say about this? And so again, if we had had this question that isn't on the due date saying, oh, and by the way, we have an ancient variance, we're gonna have to go get a site plan review, a hearing from the planning board and amend our variance. That would have maybe triggered us to do an analogous thing to what the planning board does, and say, oh, let's send a letter over to the planning board and ask them what they might, what they think of this. What do you think of that idea?
I think the chair looks to bring the conversation.
Well, I think we've made our point, and I think it's a cautionary tale that's been told here that
Yeah,
going forward, we probably want to do some checking before we, but I agree with you, Adam. I'm not so sure that is our responsibility. We're taking a look at an application with a funding amount. We're looking at the benefits to the town. We're looking at the negatives. I think the communication piece, not only in this particular application, communication in general, when it was mentioned, we don't get anybody to come to the hearings. We don't get people applying for in application. We don't get them. There's so much money. There are a lot of needs in the town. But we're constantly reaching out, trying to get people to make applications. Am I correct? Through a blast. We send a blast out that applications will be open at such and such a time.
Mhm.
It doesn't work for some reason. We're not able to reach them.
I get that.
Yeah,
And I feel a compulsion just to make one other note. This may be my final comment.
hopefully it's not your final meeting.
First and last. With the chair's indulgence is that.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying, Reg, but the planning board in November of 2023 would not have even been aware of the project that came before us. Like, in other words, when this committee was reviewing it, we wouldn't have known any of the issues. We wouldn't have known anything until we had begun our own process. And I don't think that we can expect an applicant, I don't think we can expect this commission to try to get all the other committees' perspectives on it if they haven't even known that they're gonna be an applicant. Let alone having completed a hearing of its own and done its own committee's work, but where it does make sense.
Well, let's keep these comments in mind as we head into the fall for the new application cycle, which we'll transition into here for our agenda. Summer and fall application cycle schedules and logistics. Lauren, can you help us with this?
Sure. I put together kind of a proposed schedule that would encompass our off-cycle fall application from Park and Rec for the tennis courts, as well as our standard spring application process that would begin with our application for that opening up August 1st, which I did not put into the schedule and noted that I need to add that in. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to review this, but basically our application cycle works. The application is open and available. And it's, put out on the website. We send out a blast in the news you need, and we put it up in the CPC website. And spread the word. And then applications come in, we review them for eligibility. We have a meeting and we vote on initial eligibility of the application. We take our standard due diligence questions, we review them, we refine them, we might add something, that's project specific. We send those out to the applicant, we give them a deadline by which they need to get them back to us. Then, we have the applicant come in to give a presentation. Then, we have a public hearing. And then from there, we vote. The chair has a couple of extra responsibilities in that you will meet with select board and finance committee about the application and kind of the sense of the committee and where things stand. And then we go into town meeting. So this year, because we have this off-cycle application on the high school tennis courts, we'll be doing this essentially twice, once for that application, then again for whatever comes in.
Yeah,
Dave?
yeah, I don't mean to interrupt your thought, but why, what is the reasoning behind this off-cycle application? Why can't it wait till the fall? And just a question, just because they withdrew it before, that's fine, I mean,
So the history of this is, the committee has generally, and we can change it, by the way, but it has generally not accepted off-cycle applications unless there's some emergency reason to do
That's what I
so.
thought.
And the only time I can remember that that's ever happened was when we had an ice dam at Seabeds, and remember the 100 inches of snow? So we wound up having much destruction to our buildings. We came in with an emergency application of funding in August. Other than that, it's been our policy, not necessarily for any good or bad reason, but not to do it. So I'm not advocating it one way or the other here, so I just wanted to state that for the record.
I think the timing of the need exists for this project to move forward as soon as possible. I think we've had the high school tennis teams practicing and playing in all different areas, and the town being denied opportunities to use those courts. I think getting this up front is beneficial to a number of parties. And I think that might be the reason we've moved this forward. Is that correct, Lauren?
Well, I don't know. I know we voted on accepting the withdrawal of the application.
Yeah.
Before town meeting started. I suppose it's up to the committee to decide if it wants to accept an off-cycle.
Yeah, we need, excuse me, but we need to know when they plan to, if it's approved, when they plan.
Yeah,
to
we've
build it.
got nothing at this stage.
When do they plan to build it? Because if they're not gonna build it until the following, after the spring town meeting, then, I don't see the urgency for this fall town meeting.
Well, as it stands, we were going to. Well, the proposed schedule had us opening up the application July 1st, so I suppose I could reach out to Park and Rec to kind of get a sense of what their timetable is.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask them what,
That would be our hope, I think, to have that application resubmitted, doctored up, whatever they have to do, so that we can vote on it and have it moved to fall town meeting, correct?
I think that's the goal, but Dave's questioning why we would do
yeah,
that
why-
versus having them come through first, our normal spring cycle.
my question is, why do we do this off cycle? There's gotta be a reason. I'm just asking what the reason is. If there's no reason.
I think the imminent need, but go ahead, Adam.
So, before I do, I just noticed that Laura had her.
Laura, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was just going to suggest that unless Park and Rec has a different story to tell us, which would sort of warrant us to move forward quickly, I don't think it should be taken out of cycle, because we don't want to get into the same situation again where it didn't seem like everything was prepared, and didn't seem as if, abutters had the information they needed, and whatnot. So unless they have an update, I would be hesitant to take this out of cycle. So maybe Lauren could check on that.
I think I just assumed that the project was pretty far along. It's now gotten past or will soon be past the
Right.
planning board review process.
By the end of the month.
I think all they need to do is kind of, I would think, unless it had to go through significant changes in order to pass the planning board review process. I anticipated they would just come in, do a quick redo on their application, highlight whatever changes there have been since we last looked at it and approved it. Give a quick presentation, kind of letting us know what's happened since the vote to now, and it would be a process that would move rather quickly because it's a project we're all very familiar with. So unless there were substantial changes, I don't think it would necessarily. be-
Yeah, but my question would be, when are they gonna build it?
Right.
You know, if
No,
they're
I
not,
understand.
if they're not gonna build it till next
Then
spring.
what's the urgency?
Mr. Chair. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. One is, specifically, the planning board recently closed its hearing and gave some specific direction to the town planner in crafting the decision, and I believe at our next meeting to be determined on the date in July, we may review that decision and approve it. If it's not, it will probably be later in July. I can't speak for the board, but I believe as though the board, and I haven't spoken to the board or any individual members, but I suspect, I don't have any reason to believe that it would not now be approved, which was a different condition than before, where they hadn't gone through the process. The process is virtually complete at this point, and there's nothing outstanding that I saw that would result in a negative vote by enough of the members to deny the application on the special permit. There may be, and it's certainly up to the applicant, I think, to tell us what the urgency is now. And if they're looking for town meeting to then approve the recommendation of this committee in October, there may be a benefit because there may be some demolition work that they might be able to do or some site work that they can do before they start digging in March or April of next year. And if that's the case, if they have to tell us that, if that is the case, then it would seem valid that they would need the cash on hand to be able to do some of the additional site work, maybe with some engineers and architects and so forth. To be, to finish up some of that work and to pay those expenses, which I think are valid. And it also could be that they may just simply want to be in a position where there's no other competition. There's no one else on the dance floor. So they get picked. But I think it's up to the, Parks and Rec Commission to tell us and satisfy us.
So in that event, does that mean, you'd like, I mean, I can reach out and get an update and I can push that out to all of you through email? Or is this something where our next meeting, you want them to come, this is something that we want to consider at our next meeting? I mean, if I get this information and they give us what their timetable is for construction, the reason why it needs to be fall versus spring and I let you know through email, is that sufficient? Or do we need to have a conversation to come back to the table and discuss and decide whether or not we're going to proceed with an off-cycle process, application process?
I think the reaching out is the first thing you should do to find out what their plan is. To Adam's point, I think, the advantage, I'm not Park and Rec, so I'm not proposing this, but the advantage to having it go to fall town meeting is that they have the money in hand after approval in the fall. They can in fact do some demolition. They can begin construction as soon as the weather breaks in March or April, not have to wait till May town meeting to get the process moving. They might even be ready to have it done by mid-June.
They got money. The money that this commission is providing is not the 100%.
It was at 50% of the
Yeah.
amount. It was,
Yeah.
we did 1.4 million, they did 1.4 million from the.
1.2, right.
1.2, yeah. Mr. Chair? if I may?
Yes,
I think more information is the right way to go. But we can't really discuss that more information via email or make any decision there, because that's a violation of the open meeting law. It's called serial communication here. So I think the two questions I hear is, one is, what is the urgent reason? And I would say, as one member here, if they say, if we can get the money approved in, because we have to get the whole, all of it approved in spring and fall town meeting. It's not just our part of it, but the other part of it. That means we can start the project sooner. And we won't obviously have it done for spring tennis season, but we might have it done for summer recreation season and certainly for fall, tennis season. That would be a reason that I would think would be worthy, given that we really thought this was a great project. If they come back and say, even if we get the money by the end of October and you can't spend it for another, I think, 60 days or anything like that, we've lost the summer and the fall, spring, summer and fall towns. And then that would be an argument to put it back on the regular cycle from my point of view here. So, but if they say, no, we can do this, on an expedited basis, then I'm certainly willing to, again, as one member here, put the time in, but we would need the application or with the site plan review amendment approval, the order of conditions that, we wouldn't be able to, we're certainly not gonna get it by July 1st, the way Adam just described it. So we would need that approval from the planning board, number one. And I think from Parks and Rec, I would like to hear again that that it's the top priority of Parks and Rec. At the next meeting, just to re-review that, say, compared to all the other things we have in the pipeline, and Parks and Rec always has things in the pipeline for the CPA. This is still our top priority. And then, if we could review that on our July, what was it, what's our next meeting?
31st.
31st.
Meeting. I'm okay with.
Yeah, I agree.
Work it.
All right,
I agree.
Paul,
Sure. A quick comment, it might help frame the conversation with them about why it's urgent, if it is urgent. Just give us two schedules, one based on getting the expedited approval and one if they get an approval next spring.
Yeah.
And how does that pan out in effect? Playing tennis.
So would you like to accept the application, let them submit their new application with this and request this additional information so that when we review it on the 31st, we can make a determination about
Yeah.
whether we want to allow
Yes.
them to proceed.
sounds
So
good.
we have to do that as a group,
Right.
in public meeting.
Is there any value to having Stacy or representatives come to the July 31st meeting? Probably. Have an in-person presentation to answer questions rather than going back and forth with email?
We can do that.
Propose that anyway.
We can do that. Normally, we have a presentation as a separate meeting after we get all of the due diligence.
All right,
But we can certainly ask her to pop in and have a discussion with us.
If I may, we have a very compressed time frame compared to normal. Normally, we go from November 1st to a public hearing on March 3rd, mid-March. But we need to get it done in like half the time.
I mean,
Dave?
we could waive the presentation too. I mean, we already know what the project's about.
Unless there's some changes.
Yeah.
That might
And
be
then we
okay.
can just go right to the hearing, public hearing.
Well, let's wait and see what you're able to find out from Stacy or her rep.
Okay.
Okay,
So back to the schedule.
okay.
I just wanted to know if anyone had a chance to review it, if you have any thoughts or comments on it. We're sticking, Wednesday nights seem to be the night that works best for this committee because the other committees that some of you sit on meet on different weeknights. So I understand that historically Wednesdays tend to work best. So I just kind of went with, except for the summer schedule where we have a compressed timetable, I just went with, I think, with the third Wednesday of the month throughout the rest of the year. The one thing that I note is the December meeting is kind of in a little bit of a, we're in a little bit of a lull because we've voted on eligibility for our spring applications, but we've not yet received our due diligence responses from the applicants. So that December meeting, I wanted to suggest that maybe we consider using that as a date for the coalition to come in and kind of do a training for the committee, given that we have so many relatively new members. I thought that might be a good target. Unless you feel that that's too late into the cycle to do that.
Can I?
Okay.
Ask a question? I mean, I think that's good that the coalition, like the last time we did it, it was like via Zoom. Are they gonna do it in person this time?
I'm sure we could ask.
Because. Did you? Were you present in the last one?
Yeah.
I mean, it was really excellent.
It was,
presentation.
Yeah, it's well worthwhile.
One.
The one
A week ago, I-
Yeah, I
It was good.
I did that too. I was online for that. It was helpful.
So I understand that we can request that they come in and kind of just do a personal one, answer questions, kind of work with us.
Yeah.
So just a thought for that date.
Otherwise, I think the Wednesdays has worked well this year and in past years. Unless someone has another thought.
Well, it does fit like a jigsaw puzzle into all the other committee meetings. That's the issue.
Yeah.
That's how it became that.
All right, good. All right, moving forward, I guess we're at the approval of meeting minutes. We have 4 to approve. I believe that, if you are not a member, you abstain.
Oh, actually, I just noted that I don't think I sent minutes from 5/6, which was town meeting.
Okay,
We just did it quick. So it says it on the agenda, but you don't have them in your packet.
we're going through 3 of them only, 3 instead of 4. Okay,
I think if you're a voting member, but were not a member at the meeting. then the minutes
I
are-
believe you're allowed to vote.
Yeah, you can vote.
Yes, yeah, so you didn't need not be there as long as you're on the committee.
As long as you have, that you've been
You've
sworn in.
done your job of reading it and,
That's pretty standard rules of order, whatever they call them.
okay, how about, let's take each of these minutes individually. Looking at the minutes of March 13th. Do I have
I have one change.
one change?
And
Ms.
it's only
Callahan.
because I know the person and I know the spelling of their name.
Oh,
So I
thank you.
figure if we can just get that adjusted, yeah, what is that? It's the March 13th, page 2. It's, where we go back, it's Derek Schulman. He was, he's the assistant, junior varsity girls coach. His name is Derrek. And then the last name is spelled without the C. Just Shulman, but that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you'd like, we could go through all of them for any changes or corrections and then just vote on them as a packet.
Yeah,
If that makes it
absolutely.
easier.
You can do that. Any other comments or questions on the first one? No? All right. Moving to March 20th.
Is that the public hearing, Joe?
That is the,
No,
no,
March 13th.
March 13th, the previous one.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Laura, I'm not ignoring you. I just, not looking in that direction.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
No,
I'm relying on you, Maureen, with Jean gone.
that's right.
Be my editor.
Any other comments or adds, deletes?
This is for the 20th now, we're looking at 20th.
Look at the 20th.
Yeah, I didn't see anything.
No, I
that
didn't
needed
either.
to change, but
And finally, April 10th.
changes.
One thing that does come to mind, and this is off topic here, I don't know that we have formally thanked Emily Ochtenberg for her work with us this past year. I thought she was essential to our understanding of the financial piece for Linden Chambers and advice based on her experience with housing authority work. So
I agree. And I
Um,
think, you know, we should, I think Lauren, maybe we talked about this before, we were just gonna acknowledge her contributions because the contract had expired and her work had been done. Did we talk about that at all? Like just to thank her and stuff?
we
I don't
did
know.
refer to it. I don't know whether we put anything together formally, but she was essential to our work. All right, getting back to the minutes, anything seen in this particular one, April 10th?
No.
None, okay. So with the correction made by Maureen, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th, March 20th, and March 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. We'll put it to a vote. Dave,
Aye.
Maureen,
I,
Paul,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Reg,
Aye.
Joe, I, Laura,
Hi,
minutes are approved. Thank you all. That takes us to our final agenda item. Any issue not reasonably anticipated by any one of us, especially me, I guess, within the last 48 hours. Anything you want to add, Lauren?
Yes, Reg provided us with a copy of the RFP for a developer for the Linden Street project.
Right.
And so I thought it would just put it into the packet for this week to make everybody aware, and I don't know if you wanted to.
And it definitely was within the last 48 hours because it was posted late Monday.
Okay,
It's 66 pages. You all have a copy of it, I believe, at this point from Lauren. And I can update the committee a little bit about what happens from here if anybody wants to talk about
I had
it.
a couple of questions.
Yeah.
This was created by the Housing Authority's legal team.
And a consultant, procurement consultant,
Okay.
yes.
And so much of this is probably boilerplate, similar to what they would put together for most developer.
Actually, a small part of it is boilerplate and a large part of it was very unique and was very hard to create.
Okay, town council has not seen this yet, or will see it.
Never, not involved. Our general counsel.
That's right,
and our
you're a
special
separate,
counsel-
okay,
Yeah, right.
okay, all right,
But the town council has now got a copy,
all right. So the information's been shared.
but it's been legally reviewed, if that's
Okay.
your question, yes.
That's my question. Okay,
Do
you
what
wanna-
I printed out and brought with me was the dates, because that was the first thing that I
Yeah,
was curious about. And
yeah, I can go over that briefly. So what lies ahead, again, we wouldn't be doing this without this committee's support and town meeting support, obviously. And the planning board support for the zoning and the funding. And you'll see the whole project that most of you who've been involved in the last year have a pretty good familiarity on, all sort of spelled out from the point of view of announcing to developers that we're open for business, that we being, Needham Housing Authority Town of Needham. And that we're looking to, there's the usual couple bidders conferences, a Q&A, you get questions in and put questions out. And proposals are due on the 7th of August. And that gives developers, a 45-day period, a generous 6-week period to digest what's going on here, because we are a very unusual RFP in that most small towns haven't done as nearly as much work as we have. And so for, we're really looking for a partner, hopefully, that can pick up the baton and carry it forward. It might be the Cambridge Housing Authority. By the way, they kept the option open or bidding on that. And then, about a 3-week period for evaluations and selection. And then, no rest for the weary because we, as I mentioned before, to submit funding applications in November 1st for the majority of the funding. I'm talking about tens of millions of dollars with the tax credit funding. You have to actually go through the formal site plan review process with the planning board. What we have done before is not formal. It's not official. It's, you know, not, it's obviously been very thorough and so forth, but it's not the formal process. So, working with staff and the leadership of the planning board, we're targeting starting that on September 24th. And of course, we can't start that unless we have our developer partner on board along with the Needham Housing Authority. Yes.
So are you anticipating that you'll go to funding in November, the beginning of November, with a decision, a written and approved decision on the.
There's some-
site plan
there's-
in October?
There's some wiggle room on that. And if it's about, you know, it's still a work in process, it's a preliminary application. It's not the final application. So, that is doing, but it's tight if that's really what it
I'm
is.
just
Yeah.
saying. You know, that, I don't know, if the planning board in one meeting would be able to hold a hearing. And close the hearing, and the next meeting approve a decision.
That's
on a
not-
project of this scale.
That's not the expectation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll see it all spelled out in this RFP. You know, it's a challenge, but the point being that it is what it is, the time frame. And I should point out on behalf of the planning board, they have another heavy lift going this fall with the MBTA community tax zoning that has to be finalized for fall time town meeting. But anyway, that's what lies ahead. And the reason why you want to get that, there's no money, by the way. So you read about the Affordable Housing Act, maybe some of you this week is, Maureen knows it, very intense interest in the general court. They say they're going to somehow get something approved by the end of the week. The House, the governor has a $4.2 billion bill. The Senate has a governor, the House has a $6.2 billion bill in those. And the Senate just put out a $5.2 billion bill on Monday. So that is a source of funding. But right now, that's not real. It's not, you know, not there yet. All the funding has been given away through the end of 2025. But what's important with this preliminary application process is to get one in and get turned down, and then you get a tick mark for your first try, and it may take us a second year or third year, as it has with many, many other worthy projects that are already ahead of us in line. So that's where things stand.
Let me recognize Laura.
Thank you. So Rich, first of all, I just want to thank you because I know you've worked so hard. I mean, honestly, for the past 3 years on this, I know how much work you have put into this. I don't know how you did it. But I just want to recognize that the amount of work and time and everything, even from the due diligence questions to all the meetings and working with Emily and working with Cambridge Housing Authority. So it's amazing how much work you did. So I just want to acknowledge that. I think it's
Appreciate
awesome. Just a question on what would be the criteria for deciding once this RFP goes out, who would be selected? I know cost must be a factor, but are there other criteria that you guys would
Yes.
look at?
And you'll see it all spelled out over several pages towards the end of the RFP in gory detail. And basically under Chapter 30B procurement, with an RFP you put out, as long as you define what the evaluation criteria are, which is, like I said, numerous pages, the Needham Housing Authority can select the proposal that is most advantageous to the housing authority, weighing all those criteria. And there's two major categories. Category one is what they call the technical proposal or the business proposal. It's everything but cost and fees and legal terms. So you have to submit in two separate envelopes. First, the technical proposal, or the, you know, and the evaluation committee, and there'll be 7 people on the evaluation committee, citizens of Needham. Will weigh all that with the assistance and analyze it with the assistance of the procurement consultant. And then decide what the most advantageous proposal is. And then the cost proposals or the fee proposals are opened up. And you look and say, who's the cheapest? And by the way, it's not an easy decision. There are many factors in terms of weighing what is most financially advantageous to the housing authority. And you will see, you know, towards the end, there are pages that are spelling out how that decision is being made. And ultimately, that 7-member committee writes a report and sends it to the Board of Commissioners, and the commissioners make the final decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, that brings us to the end of the evening's agenda.
Sir, I have one more agenda item, if I may, walk on.
Mr. Reg Foster.
I would like to thank Joe and Laura for their service this year. And this service over the last few years on the CPC, but particularly in the last year, stepping into the shoes of the former chair, who was very, he's up to and very, you know, very competent and taking over as co-chairs and navigating the ship through everything that we had to do in the last year. And I'd like to make a motion of appreciation to the two of them from the committee, if somebody would mind. Seconding that.
Second.
And thank you. And I would like to also just recognize like the help from Lauren, which was unbelievable, and Cecilia. I mean, we really couldn't have done any of this without the two of you. So very much appreciate you both.
I would
Sorry,
accept
I'm not.
that as a friendly amendment to my motion, because that's absolutely true. Lauren, you've made a huge difference, especially starting with writing 2 or 3 years worth of back minutes, you know, getting us caught up after the COVID period, which should absolutely be recognized as beyond the call of duty and then some, I think, in my opinion.
Vital part of the committee.
You have to call the roll, Mr. Chair. It's your last name, or maybe the new chair.
Oh,
calls.
one more thing. I want to thank Joe for all his support and everything he's done. And I think we worked well together, Joe, and I will definitely
We
miss
did.
you. I'll miss all of you guys, really.
Hey, you can come
And
make-
Marshall, wait,
Okay.
Marshall Davis, welcome. Marshall's going to be great, you guys. He's going to be awesome. He's from the Historical Commission. He's going to kill it, as I know you all will.
You can still come.
No, that's okay. I think I'll just fade into the background.
Thank you for the kind words, Laura and Reg and company. We did work well together. We accomplished a lot. And I trust with the names and people we've brought on board tonight that the good work will continue. So thank you for stepping forward in a leadership role, and thank you for stepping forward as new members of the committee. So thank
Yes,
you
and
all.
correct. Congratulations. I missed that part of the meeting, so I'm so sorry, but congratulations to everybody.
So are we looking for a
Vote.
Well, we just do a round of applause.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
No discussion, I don't imagine. All right, all in favor? Dave,
Aye.
Maureen,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Reg,
Aye.
Joe, I, Laura.
Definitely, yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
So we'll just wait to hear back